as Elon Musk's suspected Nazi salute causes global controversy. Elon Musk himself cozies up to right-wing fascist parties, and his family history delinks a long relationship with fascist ideologies.
I wanna start a revolution.
All right, guys, hello and welcome to another episode of Thinking Out Loud. I'm experimenting with some new lighting in here. Let me know how you think it looks. But yeah, guys, we're going to be jumping into the Elon Musk Nazi salute. Perhaps one of the more controversial or debate-worthy topics of the last several months in a very tumultuous, very debate-worthy time. But no, in all seriousness, we will not be talking very much about Elon Musk's salute, although I can't, deny myself the opportunity to play that on here a few times and have a quick discussion about it. But that will not be the primary, purpose or focal point of today's video. We are actually going to be going back into time and looking into some of Elon Musk's ancestors and their long history, or long repertoire rather, of being involved in fascist ideologies, from alt-right groups in Canada right around World War II to technocratic fascist movements in Canada to apartheid South Africa, all the way moving forward towards the end of this video into Elon Musk's collaboration with fascists such as Trump, such as AFD, Alternative for Deutschland, and of course, Reform in Britain. So we're going to be talking on all of these things here, guys. And I know I'm not just doing this because it's controversial or clickbait. I'm choosing to have this discussion because Elon Musk's caricature, his politics, the politics of his grandfather, Joshua Haldeman, all of these things interconnect in a way between capitalism, fascism, colonial movements, all those intersections and how they've upheld structures of power within capitalist society for long periods of time. But not just that, gives us an opportunity to sort of use a microscope and look into the ways in which dog whistle politics emerged through the ages from the 30s, 40s into the modern era, and how that is used as a poison pill, as a gradual Noam Chomsky's manufacturing of consent to get the broader public, the lumpen proletariat, to embrace fascist ideologies over time without them realizing what's happening. So that's kind of the gist of the video here, guys. We'll go ahead and jump in to the infamous salute here. This is just fun for me because I'm sure you guys know where I stand. This is a Nazi salute. You'll look at it. It's not throwing this. If I was going to throw my heart out to the crowd, they try to say that this was throwing his heart out. If I was going to throw my heart out to the crowd of my adoring 60 or so people that watch my YouTube channel, I would, give you guys one of these or one of these. Or if I wanted to be risky and do one hand, I'd go, it's not what this was, pretty clearly, and we will see it. But that being said, let's have a vigorous debate about what it was in the comment section. But I wanted to show this because we're going to get into how his family has a long history of being involved in fascist ideologies, and how Musk himself has cozied up pretty part and parcel, pretty sensually with right-wing groups, right? So let's go ahead, jump right in, take a look at this video, and y'all can let me know what you think of Elon Musk's throwing his heart out to the crowd. All right, let's go.
You know, there are elections that come and go. Some elections are, you know, important. Some are not. But this one, this one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
Shall we rewatch it?
Really mattered.
Let's watch it a few times.
And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you. It is thanks.
One more time here, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
My heart.
Now, of course, you know, we'll stop there with viewing that. You've all seen this 100 times and made your own conclusions. You know, I would be willing to listen to the argument that that's him throwing his heart out to the crowd. He's autistic. He doesn't know how to use his body. He talks weird. Yes, this is all very true about him. I'd be willing to believe that argument on the first one. And then there's this look in his eye. And then he turns around and does it to the flag, to the reverse part of the stage. And it's even more, you know, deliberate, intentional. That's a Nazi salute. Okay? And in this video, we're going to be having a discussion about dog whistles and the politics of dog whistles. And like I said, how that has allowed increasingly fascist rhetoric and fascist politicians to ingratiate themselves with the public, right? We are living in a time when quite clearly fascist, okay, let's be as particular as possible, fascist, at least fascist adjacent organizations and belief systems are becoming more and more prevalent in our society. And we are living in a time in a society where it would before people will not see that and will not realize what's happening until you have SS or SA walking down the street in brown shirts or black shirts with a fucking swastika on their arm. And the thing is, I think even if we saw that, there'd still be a lot of people saying that's not actually what it is. You know? And I'm saying this because people need to realize the people in these organizations, in the ruling class, in the capitalist class, in the political class, are not going to just go and put on Nazis if they have fascist ideologies and fascist tendencies and fascist policy desires. They're not going to just go put on a black uniform and a swastika. Because in the cultural zeitgeist, that is still considered evil. Like, the Nazi suit, the Nazi uniform, is like the ultimate rendition of evil come to reality, right? They're not going to do that, and unless people see that, they're not going to realize what's happening because they don't know their history. They don't understand the cultural trends that create fascism. And these people use dog whistles and gradual cultural politics to get people to embrace all of the fascism so that if they ever want to take the mask off or need to take the mask off all the way, they can. Because by then people will say, oh, well, all right. They're not going to come out and say they're Nazis, but they do things like this. A Nazi salute that you can kind of pass off as, oh, well, he just made a bad gesture, right? Or as we'll see, you say things about George Soros. You know, you never say the Jewish banker conspiracy. You never say that. You say the internationalist. You say all these things, and we'll get into that. But this is the politics of dog whistling, right? And this is a form of that. And, you know, in my view, Elon Musk, like, yeah, he could go and do that full, uncompromising, this is a Nazi salute. He did as close to that as he possibly could while having plausible deniability. That is what he did. I don't really think it's up for debate, but if you want to debate it, especially as we talk about some of these other things, go ahead, debate it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this. The next thing I want to show you guys is this video from Mac G's podcast. If you don't know who Mac G is, he is a South African DJ, media personality, activist. Just kind of, in the cultural zeitgeist in South Africa. A lot of people in North America don't know him. But in this podcast, I have a clip here of him talking with Elon Musk, who is Elon Musk's father. And he talks about Elon Musk's and grandfather, his maternal grandparents, and their ties to Nazi adjacent movements in Canada and the reasons why he moved to apartheid South Africa. Right. And that will serve as a catalyst into our next article. So we'll go ahead and play this here for you guys quick.
Her parents came to South Africa from Canada because they sympathized with the Afrikaner government.
Okay.
They used to support Hitler and all that sort of stuff. But they didn't know, obviously, I don't think they knew what the Nazis were doing. But they in Canada, they were in the German party in Canada, and they sympathized with the Germans.
Yeah.
So when the Afrikaners government came into power here in 1948, then May's father, who was quite an interesting guy, he was a very good pilot, he said he wants to be with the Afrikaners because he agrees with apartheid, you see. You see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And he came out here with his family.
And didn't that cause tension with you because you don't?
Yeah, that caused a lot of tension with me. And because I was a director of NUSAS, which was a National Union of South African Students, which was a very anti-apartheid body, you know. And I argued with them a lot. And they used to tell me, they used to be like rude to me, you know, and the parents. And then.
Anyway, so there's that. That's Elon Musk's father, who has been a very extremely vocal critic of his son, calling his son out on his bullshit business dealings, how he's not actually this self-made entrepreneur. He's caught up in the military-industrial complex, and it's all nepo. I mean, Musk is a nepo baby in a connected. His whole persona is a sham. We could do a whole video on that. And word to the wise here, this video is going to go a lot longer, just covering the aspects of Elon Musk's grandfather and his current ties to Elon Musk's current ties to some fascist or fascist adjacent parties, right? We could go into all his business dealings. I've been wanting to do an expose on that, and I've been in the background working on putting together several pieces of information about how SpaceX, it's just his deals with the military-industrial complex, same with Starlink, same with Tesla. I mean, the man that he preaches libertarian Ayn Rand values, and he preaches being the self-made man and work hard, bootstraps, blah, 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 blah. He is a product of the American empire, a product of the military-industrial intelligence state, right? A discussion for another time. But I did want to highlight this comment here. Let's see. This comment right here from Snoo Compliments 6605. If he wears the mustache, they'll just say he really likes Charlie Chaplin. And I do believe that is incredibly indicative of the cult-like mentality of not just Elon Musk fans, but Trump fans, because that's where we're at in the process of people worshiping ideologues. It can be as out as humanly possible, and people will find an excuse for it. Right. Going on here, guys, let's go ahead and jump into this first article piece I have here. This is going to be a long one, but it's important history about Elon Musk's grandfather. But not just that, like I said earlier in the video, how capitalists, media personalities, technates, and, all these different entities come together to groom the public for fascist belief systems via dog whistles and things like that, right? So we'll go ahead and jump in here, guys. It says, Elon Musk's anti-Semitic, apartheid-loving grandfather. The billionaire has described his grandfather as a risk-taking adventurer. A closer read of history reveals something much darker. So you might be wondering what this website is. This is an active archive website where it takes articles, like this one's from The Atlantic. Pretty much this website compiles tens of thousands of articles into one place, right? Because a lot of times publishers, newspapers, CNN, whatever, they will take things down, right? This archive exists to imprint them permanently in third-party databases, right? So this is what this is. Okay. Elon Musk's grandfather, his name is Joshua Haldeman. But in 1950, Haldeman's quirky politics led him to make an unusual and dramatic choice to leave Canada for South Africa. Haldeman had built a comfortable life for himself in Regina, Saskatchewan's capital. His chiropractic practice was one of Canada's largest and allowed him to possess his own airplane, a 20-room home that he shared with his wife and 4 young children. He'd been active in politics, running for both the provincial and national parliaments, and even becoming the national chairman of a minor political party. Meanwhile, he'd never been to South Africa. So we'll go into this more later about how he gave up his entire comfortable life in Canada in order to move to the Afrikaner government, apartheid government in South Africa. Haldeman had come to believe that the Canadian government was usurping too much control over the lives of individuals, that the country had gone soft, similar rhetoric that we hear amongst right-wingers today in the United States. But another factor was at play: his strong support for the brand new apartheid regime. An examination of Joshua Haldeman's writings reveals a radical conspiracy theorist who expressed racist, anti-Semitic, and anti-democratic views repeatedly and over the course of decades. A record I studied across hundreds of documents from the time, including newspapers clips, self-published manuscripts, university archives, and private correspondence. Haldeman believed that apartheid South Africa was destined to lead white Christian civilization in its fight against the international conspiracy of Jewish bankers and the hordes of colored people they controlled. As we read through this, you're going to see a lot of tropes coming from the period of the rise of fascism. And without even my analysis, you should be able to draw parallels to the same sort of tropes, and again, dog whistles, that modern-day right-wing and far-right pundits and political personalities pursue today. Right. Instead of the government's attitude keeping me out of South Africa, it had precisely the opposite effect. It encouraged me to come and settle here, he told a reporter for the South African newspaper Die Transvaaler shortly after his arrival. The far-right Afrikaner newspaper treated Haldeman's arrival as a PR victory for apartheid. Praises action of Nationalist Party regime. Canadian politician settles in South Africa, the headline read. Musk's grandfather spelled out his beliefs in a 1960 self-published book with the weighty title, The International Conspiracy to Establish a World Dictatorship and the Menace to South Africa. Its existence was first reported by Jill Lepore in the New Yorker. Library databases indicated that there is only one copy in the Western Hemisphere at Michigan State University, which is where I obtained it. In it, Haldeman wrote that there was a strong possibility that South Africa will become the leader of white Christian civilization, as she is becoming more and more the focal point, the bulwark, and the subject of attack by anti-Christian, anti-white forces throughout the world. She will fulfill this destiny if the white Christian people get together, if they realize the forces that are behind these worldwide attacks, if the people will make a study of who are their real enemies and what their methods are, if she will seriously combat the evils of internationalism that are already taking cancerous root in our society. So a few things I'm going to point out here. Again, these dog whistles, these connections of fascist rhetoric, right? Let's see here. The international conspiracy to establish a world dictatorship. What does that sound like? New World Order. Okay. Back in the 30s, the Nazis preyed on using conspiratorial rhetoric about the Jewish banking elite, their ties to demons. You know, with Alex Jones, it's interdimensional planetary beings. They're demons. They're demons. I'm just going to say they're demons. Alex Jones is not a new phenomenon. That was the kind of TV radio personality that existed in Weimar Germany, which led millions of Germans down into this conspiratorial rabbit hole, which then was co-opted by fascist politicians and bred upon in order to get them to embrace the political and ideological directives of the Nazi Party. Right. Nowadays, it's not the Jewish. They don't say the Jewish banking conspiracy. They say the Rothschilds. They say the New World Order government, right? They say the internationalists, you know, all of this is prevalent today. And it's just, the sad part is it's only just slightly altered. It's almost the same exact rhetoric, just slightly twinged with a few different adjectives and a few different personalities as a focal point in order to get people, instead of turning on capitalism, which has abandoned them and impoverished them, deindustrialized them, made them into peasants and wage slaves, completely dismantled the middle class. This all exists to take the discontentment amongst working class people where they should be directing it towards the capitalist system. Instead, they direct it to a shadowy underworld group of elites. No one knows where they come from or where they are or how they do it. They worship the devil in the basement and fuck each other at goat-head sex parties and sacrifice children, and they make it into this whole... And maybe some of that happens. Rich people are weird. But that's not the main point. The main point is to make you so worried about that shit that you don't say, hey, maybe giant multinational corporations and CEOs like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos shouldn't own the entire fucking economy. And maybe if we got together and joined hands and revolted, we could establish a system that works for all of us. Instead of worrying and thinking about that, they have you worrying about a fictional group of hidden people instead of the people right in front of us that are running the show, right? So let's go on here, guys. These views were on display before he set out to South Africa. The minor political party that Haldeman had led in Canada was notorious for anti-Semitism. In 1946, when one of the party's newspapers printed the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, arguably the most consequential conspiracy text in the modern world, he defended the decision, arguing that the plan as outlined in these protocols has been rapidly unfolding in a period of observation of this generalization. A local rabbi described Haldeman's political speeches to the newspaper as shot through with anti-Semitic talk. The Protocols of Zion, if you don't know about them, you've maybe heard about these standing stones, and I don't remember what state, with the Protocols of Zion on it, talking about there should only be 1 billion people on the planet and all this stuff. That comes from the Protocols of Zion. I don't know the entire backstory of where that comes from and which group kind of pushed it initially. But it was embraced by fascists as a way to justify the eradication of less than groups so that the white race could be that, like we talked about in past episodes, golden billion, right? It's a foundational text, mythological text supporting white supremacy, right? And you'll hear people talk about it now today. And you'll even have some unassuming individuals share it because it sounds like an environmental utopian idea of how we can make society work on this planet. But in reality, it's fascist rhetoric used to add a mythological or semi-religious stripe to their belief system, right? Before that, he'd been a leader in a fringe political movement that called itself Technocracy Incorporated, which advocated an end to democracy and rule by a small tech-savvy elite. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Go ahead and look at Trump's inauguration. You got Trump, fascist politicians, and then a whole harem of technate, AI, digital age, billionaire robber barons, capitalists. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, right? An end to democracy and rule by a small tech-savvy elite. Sounds pretty fucking familiar, doesn't it? During World War II, the Canadian government banned the group, declaring it a risk to national security. Haldeman's involvement with Technocracy continued, though, and he was arrested and convicted of 3 charges relating to it. Once he got to South Africa, he added black Africans to his list of rhetorical targets. The natives are very primitive and must not be taken seriously, he wrote back to his hometown Canadian newspaper in 1951. Some are quite clever in a routine job, but the best of them cannot assume responsibility and will abuse authority. The present government of South Africa knows how to handle the native question. The Jewish question. Does anything else about this sound familiar, guys? blaming the other, blaming the person of color, right? And we'll see later his comments about the horde of blacks coming to destroy South Africa. What does that sound like? The horde of immigrants invading our country, going to destroy our values, going to take our jobs, ruin our society. I mean, guys, if you're falling for this immigrant crap, you're dumb. You're dumb. It's the same shit. It's the Jews. It's the blacks. It's the immigrants. No, it's not. And it never has been. Ever. And it never will be that. Yes, large amounts of immigration could put strains on the society, but they are not the ones causing the crises that make it so that it's a strain that's impossible to be bared by the civilization, right? That is deindustrialization. That is capitalist, capture of the government, right? This rhetoric is as old as time, guys. Going on here says, when Musk tweets that George Soros appears to want nothing less than the destruction of Western civilization, in response to a tweet blaming Soros for an invasion of African immigrants into Europe, he is not the first in his family to insinuate that a wealthy Jewish financier was manipulating thousands of Africans to advance nefarious goals. Again, George Soros wants the immigration in the United States because it's part of his plan to destroy our white democracy. Come on, guys. It's the same shit. Same exact shit. Same shit the Nazis said. Same stuff different groups in apartheid South Africa said. Same shit today. A wealthy internationalist group wants to destroy the American Republic. No, dude. No. You know who wants to destroy the American Republic? The capitalist class that has captured the government and uses it to uphold its interests at the expense of everyone else. And what's sad about it is, like, what I just said is so fucking plain to see. They are not hiding it. They dump Elon Musk. Elon Musk was openly dumping tens of millions of dollars into Trump's campaign. Same with other billionaire tech oligarchs. All of it's right here for you to see. It's right here for you to see billionaires that own the entire economy dumping money into politicians to make sure that they don't do the job of protecting and serving you. But no, it's brown people. Brown people that are some of the poorest people on the planet, fleeing some of the worst conditions on the planet. They're somehow to blame for the problem. Let's go in here, guys. I'm going to rant a lot on this. Again, remember this video is going to run a little longer. Scott's Technocracy Incorporated called for the destruction of all current governments on the continent to be replaced by the Technate of North America, a new entity to be run by engineers and scientists. In calling for the abolition of all existing government, the technocrats advocated what they like to call a functional control system, modeled off the telephone network and other large corporations. AT&T, they noted, wasn't a democracy either. The Technate would measure the total energy output of the continent and annually allot to each citizen a set number of energy certificates, which would replace money. Quote unquote, it will be impossible to go into debt and likewise impossible to save income for the future, one Technocracy Incorporated brochure from this period says. It would be impossible to sell anything. Now, a lot of that's really crazy crackpot shit. Okay. But the point I want you to focus on, Scott's Technocracy Incorporated called for the destruction of all current governments on the continent to be replaced by the Technate of North America, right? Okay, so, I actually forgot to pull this up, but I want to show you this. This was a map from the 30s from Technocracy Incorporated depicting what they saw as the Technate, the ideal political entity. Here we can see Canada subsumed by the United States. Greenland subsumed by the United States. Mexico subsumed by the United States. Look down here. Panama Canal subsumed by the United States. What does this sound like? We're gonna buy Greenland. There's minerals there. We need it for national security. Canada's the 51st state. Maybe we could take over Canada. Maybe it could be part of America. Maybe we need to have a military intervention in Mexico to stop the drug. I'm doing a terrible Trump accent. I apologize. But, okay, we're going to take back the Panama Canal. Okay. Elon Musk's grandfather was one of the founders and biggest spokesperson of the Technocracy Incorporated that believed in this map, in this political entity. Now Elon Musk is one of the biggest financiers and backers of the Trump campaign, and now suddenly Trump's talking about this. Why am I saying this? I know it seems like I'm going on a thread. What I'm saying is there is a new line in the political ruling class, in the capitalist oligarchy, working together to refurbish and bring back to the forefront some of these concepts. Now, they're not going to run it with, oh, there will be no money energy certificates. No. They're just taking that concept of forming a single political entity, a single North American empire that's all interconnected within one American ruling oligarchic capitalist class, right? This is the new idea, and this is the new trend, and this is what I think the Trump administration is going to do. I don't know for sure that they're going to be able to completely get out of Ukraine or abandon the Middle East, or they've completely given up on Taiwan and China, because there's different factions within the political class and within the capitalist class wanting different things for the American empire. They want the American empire to go this way or that way. There's not all in agreement. But Trump and the tech oligarchs around him, more and more so, I believe, are leaning towards this technocracy idea. They realize that the American empire is waning. They realize that they can no longer fight imperial wars all over the planet. So they're saying, come home. And this is something I've been saying that I think is going to be happening in the coming decades in the United States. As they get kicked out, literally kicked out of Africa, slowly kicked out of the Middle East, kicked out of East Asia. We see Trump, Europe is becoming weakened and it's becoming a backwater that's no longer truly relevant to the American empire. As we see all these things, we're going to see the American empire turn back to its Western hemisphere, to the western part of its empire, to the Monroe Doctrine. And we are seeing that rhetoric over the last 5 to 10 years, becoming more and more prevalent, and we're going to see that trend continue, I believe. So let's go on here, guys. So that's a little backstory about Joshua Haldeman's involvement with Technocracy and the connection, I believe, that we are seeing that stems, clearly Elon Musk has been influenced by his grandfather's politics. Let's go on here. This part's a little fun and interesting. And in this paragraph, I'm going to get a little conspiratorial. I know, but it's something I thought to myself and I want to point out. Y'all can call me a crazy wacko if you want. But I think it's important. Scott also convinced members that they should begin referring to themselves by a number, not just a name. At one rally, a speaker was announced simply as 1X1809X56. Haldeman, for his part, became 10450-1, according to newspaper accounts of the time. This number is derived from Regina's latitude and longitude, which is the town he was from. He became the first local head of Technocracy. Anyway, why am I pointing this out? This group called themselves by numbers and letters, right? Does that remind you of anything? Do you guys remember when Elon Musk's son was born and his name was, I got it right here, this is why I had to have that sticky note, X-AE-A-12. Now, they gave us a whole thing about why that was, because of this symbolism for this god and somehow this building. And everyone at the time was kind of like, well, it's weirdo Hollywood / billionaire fucking... They're weird, man. Some of them don't shower and shit. They're odd. I don't know. And that very well may be true. Again, I'm going on a limb here. But that reminds me of what his grandfather was advocating for, people calling themselves a combination of letters and numbers in a technocracy. And my intuition, for what it's worth, maybe it's worth dick, tells me at his core when he named his son that, it was to honor his grandfather's politics. Okay. Let's move on here, guys. So going on, at this time, Technocracy Incorporated kind of fell apart. Joshua Haldeman, Elon Musk's grandfather, was arrested and whatever. And then he ended up joining more far-right fascist-adjacent organizations under this character of Douglas. Douglas believed there was an innate imbalance in the financial system of his day. Workers were not paid enough to consume all the goods they produced. There was always a gap which he considered waste. His solution was the issuance of a sort of government-created scrip to all citizens, something akin to universal basic income, which is not a bad idea. You know, you maybe are reading that, you're like, oh, that doesn't sound terrible. Okay, fair, but it gets a little weirder. Douglas saw social credit and democracy as incompatible. He advocated ending the secret ballot, making all votes public, and then taxing citizens differently depending on whom they voted for. He also called for the abolition of political parties and considered majority rule a form of despotism. The work of governance should be left to the experts. Why was Douglas so skeptical of the secret ballot and majority rule? Because he viewed them as tools of a global Jewish conspiracy whose tentacles infested every corner of society. He was a virulent anti-Semite who consistently traced the rot in the financial system to a single source. Jews. Oh, they're everywhere. He cited the Protocols of Zion, again, like we talked about, frequently, and as an accurate blueprint for the actions of the quote-unquote world plotters, okay, whom he saw at war with Christian civilization. What is that? Same rhetoric. Again, guys, New World Order versus American democracy and traditional it's the same shit. It's the same shit. World plotters versus Christian civilization. New World Order versus American democracy. Same shit. Same shit. Same shit. I'm gonna say it 100 fucking times. And 100 more by the end of this video. The Jew has no native culture and always aims at power without responsibility, Douglas wrote in Social Creditor magazine in 1939. He is the parasite upon and corrupter of every civilization in which he has attained power. Douglas even bewilderingly considered Nazi Germany to be a creation and instrument of Jewish power. He occasionally argued that Hitler was a secret Rothschild. So he's a fascist on top of a fascist blaming other fascists. That's fucking fascist. Going on here. This is Haldeman's time involved with the social creditors. Haldeman replied in a series of letters to the editor in which he maintained that the Social Credit Party was not anti-Semitic, while saying some rather anti-Semitic things, including the outrageous claim that Hitler had been installed as German Führer by money supplied by international financiers, many, but not all, of them Jewish, quote-unquote, he says. Some were Jewish. Maybe. He claimed that Jews created anti-Semitism to generate sympathy. Does that sound familiar? You hear that a lot with Holocaust deniers. And in multiple letters, Haldeman argued that whether the protocols were fake was besides the point. The idea they contained were true, even if they were forgery. The point is that the plan as outlined in these protocols is rapidly unfolding. So why am I highlighting this? This is amazing because you're beginning to see the gradual shift away from the out-and-out rhetoric of Nazi Germany into this dog-whistly fucking shit. Oh, we ain't going to say it's the international financiers, not the Jews. They just happen to be Jewish, right? This is a great little synopsis, a great little peek into the gradual transition as after World War II, fascism became unpopular because it killed millions of people and people were like, fuck Nazis. These people kept fascism alive by transfiguring, by some complex alchemy, their language. They changed their language to be more receptive to people with reactionary views. So that the little ember of Nazism was kept alive. Don't go out. Don't go out. Give it a few decades. We'll get the idiots to come around to, oh, here's an idiot. Here's an idiot. Oh, yes. Burn. Right? This is what they did. I'm being crazy today, guys. I know. I had iced tea and I can't handle my caffeine. But no, this is what they do. They gradually change the rhetoric. And now that we've seen that dog whistle rhetoric take hold in the United States, now that people are accepting the immigrants, the international George Soros, Rothschild banker, the goat head fuck party, children sacrifice, fluoride in the water. Ugh! Now that people are accepting that, now they're starting to, he's doing his little salute. Ooh, can I do it, guys? Can I? Maybe I will. Maybe I did. I don't know. Now that people have accepted the basis of this conspiratorial crap, they can start to take the mask off, peeling it away. Have you ever done like one of those mud masks? I'm kind of a high maintenance guy. Why do you think I got this beautiful figure? I'm gonna peel it away. Oh no, maybe is that a swastika tattoo? Who fucking knows? Maybe it's not. Maybe it. This is what's happening in American politics today. Here we go. Haldeman was all about dog whistle politics. Janine Stringle, a historian who wrote a book about anti-Semitism in Canada's Social Credit Party, told me he wouldn't say Jew, but he'd say everything short of it. He knew that what he was saying, and his base knew what he was saying. Exactly, like I was saying. These dog whistling things that they do, it is great politically for them because, one, it appeals to the real Nazis and neo-Nazis who know what these motherfuckers are saying. But it also appeals to people that have some reactionary views that would probably never actually endorse Nazism or fascism. And it brings them into the fold and brings them closer to the actual Nazis so that they're rubbing elbows. And eventually these people that have some reactionary views but would never be fascists start talking with the fascists and hearing fascist rhetoric, and they say, well, maybe some of that wasn't so bad. And then the next thing it is, well, I mean, maybe Hitler had some stuff right, but like he just took it too far. And then eventually, what do you got? A brand new Nazi kicking and screaming into the world. It's the Jews. There it is, right? This is how dog whistle politics works. Moving on to the apartheid period. The two most foundational apartheid laws, one forcing all South Africans to register the race with the government, and the Group Areas Act, which segregated housing in urban areas, weren't enacted until July 1950, less than a month before Haldeman announced his move there. In other words, Haldeman was choosing to move into a system of regimented racial subjugation just being born. When Haldeman gave an interview to De Transvaler, he was speaking to perhaps the most extremist publication in the country, one that held a special animus for Jews and whose founding editor Hendrik Verwoerd those Dutch names are crazy, was known as the architect of apartheid. The paper regularly railed against British Jewish imperialism and blamed election losses on the money of organized Jewry. Does that sound familiar? Okay, remember, we're replacing International Jewish Banker, Jewry. We're replacing that word with New World Order, international financiers, right? The globalists, that's the big one, right? The globalists are coming for us. That's what Trump said. He lost the election because of the globalists, the New World Order agenda. Fucking George Soros stole the election. Alex Jones, fucking half a fifth of whiskey deep. George Soros stole the election. Okay? This is where it gets its start. When a rival newspaper in 1941 accused De Transvaler and Verwoerd of pushing Nazi propaganda and running falsified news stories, Verwoerd sued its editor for libel and lost, with the judge ruling that he did support Nazi propaganda. He did make his paper a tool of the Nazis in South Africa, and he knew it. We'll see something similar with the AfD in Germany here, guys. Going on more with Haldeman, he went on to say that it is impossible to make a native work hard. It takes 3 natives to do the work of 1 white man, and the white people here work about half as hard as Canadians. Haldeman also encouraged Canadians to follow his lead. This country seems to have unlimited opportunities for development. The Rhodesias in South Africa could easily stand 50 million white people. Not even hiding it. We flew over hundreds of miles in which we scarcely seen even a native hut. So calling for active colonization and apartheid. Come, join us whites. The whites are having a grand time here in South Africa. The blacks do whatever we tell them to and they like it. Come, that's what he's saying, guys. Come on. It's beautiful here. After attempts to clear, the unarmed crowd failed. Police opened fire, leading to the Sharpsville massacre. Days later, the United Nations passed Resolution 134, the body's first official condemnation of apartheid. This is when we start to see the beginning of the true beginning of the anti-apartheid movement, right? In response to this, Hallman had the self-published The International Conspiracy to Establish a World Dictatorship in the Menace of South Africa, a 42-page response to Sharpeville. In it, Haldeman predicted that there would soon be an outside invasion by hordes of colored people. Does that sound familiar? They're coming. They're an invading force. They're coming. The Browns, the Latino. Some of them are criminals. Some of them are good people. They're rapists, murderers. Ugh. Here it is. He blamed the international media for paying too much attention to the African National Congress and other apartheid groups. Does that sound familiar? It's the fault of the media. And our media is shit, and it's owned by corporations. But blaming the media for what? Wokeism. And he repeatedly returned to the international conspiracy, pulling the strings behind it all, sometimes shorthanded as the conspiracy or the internationalists, the globalists, whom he complained controlled the press and the medical profession. Holy fuck, guys. It's all the same shit you're hearing with Robert Kennedy. Dude, it's all the same shit. None of this is new. Haldeman is careful to talk about the international finance without speaking openly about Jews. By my count, he slips only twice in the book, once referring to communism as a Jewish moral philosophy for more equitable distribution of scarcity, and once caustically labeling the London School of Economics the Zion of economists. But the names to whom he attributes this global control ring throughout: Jacob Henry Schiff, Paul Warburg, Harold Lasky, Lehman, Castle, Burrick, Samuel, Jewish names here, guys, and Meyer Rothschild, whose family he blamed for the French Revolution, the American Civil War, the rise of Mussolini, and untold number of assassinations. Haldeman closes the book with recommended reading. And the scale of his radicalism can be judged by what he suggests. He praises the magazine of the League of Empire Loyalists, a British group led by the anti-Semite A.K. Chesterton, a former leader of the British Union of Fascists. Recommended reading, guys. The League later evolved into the Fascist Party National Front. He also recommends readers subscribe to South African Observer, a Jew-hating monthly, whose editor S.E.D. Brown held Haldeman-esque views. South Africa has been marked out as an enemy because it is a bastion of white conservatism, because it believes in national sovereignty and Western Christian civilization. Again, guys, all this should sound familiar. It's just taking instead of saying Western Christian civilization, they say Western values, democratic values. Shane said he considers Brown the high priest of the anti-Jewish fanaticists. This one's really key, guys. Because now we're getting into Robert F. Kennedy waters and anti-vax waters and all this crackpot shit. It all starts here, guys. It starts with Nazis and Nazi-adjacent people, and they gradually change their rhetoric, morph it to fit modern views and sympathies. And then once people have embraced that, again, guys, I'll say it, they begin warping it back around so that you start to become a fascist. At some point, after the international conspiracy to establish a world dictatorship in the menace to South Africa, Haldeman self-published one more book, a sequel of sorts, titled The International Conspiracy in Health. In it, he rails against health insurance mandates, vaccines, and fluoride in the water, part of the brainwashing program of the conspiracy. This ain't even New Age shit, guys. It's rehashed Nazi propaganda that they use to scaremonger people into embracing authoritarianism. That's about all I have from that article, guys. So hopefully, I know we're running long here. There's one more thing I wanted to touch on, and then we'll quit. And it'll be more brief. But I wanted to share all this with you guys to not just, because Elon Musk's grandfather was a fascist, that means he's a fascist. I mean, it's pretty fucking clear if you look at the politics and the rhetorical talking points of Elon Musk that he was deeply influenced by his grandfather's writing. Because you got to remember, while Elon Musk's might have been more progressive, and there's members of his family that are progressive, the Haldeman side didn't just go away. He was rubbing elbows with those people all his life. He was aware of his grandfather's legacy and undoubtedly looked into it and had his politics influenced by it. But I'm not just showing you all this and reading you all this to make that point. I'm showing you all this and reading you all this so that you can see this transfiguration that I'm talking about. This dog whistle transfiguration of fascist propaganda into anti-authority propaganda, which is then used to slowly churn people back into fascist belief systems. All of this is interrelated. Anti-LGBTQ, anti-abortion. It's all fascist talking points that have been rehashed with different angles to incorporate a broader sector of people in the modern world. So the next thing I want to talk about is Elon Musk's current legacy being involved with right-wing fanatics and groups, right? We don't need to get into how, since he took over Twitter, he has banned tens of thousands of leftist accounts. He has manufactured algorithms to broadly support right-wing conspiracy theory nut jobs. He brought Alex Jones back on. He brought Trump back on. All of that's very clear. He is probably the number one bankroller and supporter of Elon Musk, to the point where he gave him so much money that now he has his own government department, so to speak. Okay? And if you don't think Trump's a fascist, then just stop watching. This is not for you, I guess. You're blind and stupid. I get it. Fine. But he's a fascist. But he's also been involved with the far-right Reform Party with Nigel Farage in British politics, which I won't get into too much here. I don't have enough information. We've gone long enough. I'm trying to keep it under an hour. But we will talk about Musk's support for AFD, which is the Alternative for Deutschland. Okay. This doesn't talk about Elon Musk's specific support, but we have seen a series of tweets of him supporting AFD. We've talked about him we know he has been slated to give money to Reform, Nigel Farage's Reform Party in the UK. He's talked about doing the same with AFD, and we've heard AFD folks maybe courting that. We're going to get into here what is AFD? And they'll say, oh, it's just the anti-establishment. No. So this is Bjorn Hawk, leader of far-right Alternative for Germany. I want to dismiss any ideas that this is not a fascist organization. On a cold February day back in 2010, when he was still a teacher, we're talking about Bjorn Hawk, he took part in a neo-Nazi march in Dresden. Hawk did not simply march along with the demonstration. When counter-protesters blocked the event, he shouted angrily with a raised fist, "We want to march!" In 2008, Hawk moved to a small village of Bornhagen in Thuringia, an idyllic rural area. As the moving vans arrived at the former vicarage, a famous guest showed up, Thorsten Heiss. Heiss lives in a neighboring village and is one of the most active neo-Nazis in Germany. He has a lengthy criminal record, including grievous bodily harm, breach of the peace, coercion, and incitement to racial hatred. Heiss was also in contact with the right-wing extremist terror group, the National Socialist Underground, openly National Socialist and openly Nazi, which murdered 10 people in Germany, their motive racism. Friends with the leader of AFD, Bjorn Hawk. AFD is being supported by Elon Musk. This is one example, again, guys, of the fascists he supports. Around this time, articles by an author named Landolf Leydig appeared in Heiss's neo-Nazi magazine. Leydig exalted the Nazi regime and advocated an economic system based on racial biology. Leydig also quoted letters to the editor by Hawk and used terminology and phrasing only found elsewhere in texts written by Hawk himself. Years later, Hawk's own party attempted to expel him based on the assumption that, quote-unquote, it was almost certain that Hawk was the ominous Landolf Leydig. So this Bjorn Hawk was kicked out of a party because they knew, they might not have evidence, but all the seeming evidence that none of it was quite enough to pin him legally, but all the evidence pointed to that he took on a fake alias and wrote in the National Socialist Nazi magazine calling for racial biology in the economy and the political system. He's a Nazi, and he's hiding. This is who Elon Musk is supporting. One. Same with Nigel Farage. Same with Trump. In a letter in 2015, the AfD executive board accused Hawk of publishing writings under the pseudonym Landolf Leydig. They were extremely close to National Socialism. Hawk denied that he had done so, but refused to sign an affidavit stating as much. In 2017, the party's Federal Executive Committee started expulsion proceedings against Hawk following his controversial speech at a party in Dresden, where he criticized Germany's remembrance of the Holocaust. He called the memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe in Berlin a monument of shame and added, "These stupid politics of coming to grips with the past cripple us. We need nothing more than a 180-degree reversal on the politics of remembrance." Hawk's references to the Nazi era started to become more obvious after he joined AfD in 2013. In 2019, a German court ruled that Hawk can legally be described as a fascist based on verifiable factual basis. In 2024, he has twice been convicted of using banned Nazi slogans. The regional court in Halle ruled that he used the slogan of Hitler's Sturmabteilung, that's the SA, everything for Germany, quote unquote, during an election campaign rally for his party in November 2023. The SA, also known as the Stormtroopers, were a feared paramilitary group that terrorized political opponents and Jews on the street, primarily at the start of the Nazi regime. When handing down his verdict, the judge said that as a historian, Hawk would have known he would be committing a criminal offense by using the slogan. Hawk had to pay a fine of $19,000 for using a symbol of an unconstitutional and terrorist organization. In May 2024, Hawk was also sentenced to a fine for the same accusation after using the SA slogan in an election campaign. Okay. 1 hour we did, guys. I hope what I've been trying to say makes sense to you. I wanted to do this last little anecdote as one single example of how Elon Musk is supporting fascist entities and how fascist entities are hiding behind the mask of dog whistle politics while they subsume power behind the scenes until the point where it'll be too late for us to do anything because they've already seized all the levers of power and manufactured the consent of enough people to implement out and out armband swastika fucking fascism. It's here, it's coming, and you have to be blind or fucking illiterate not to see it. Okay? Just because you don't have stormtroopers walking down the street doesn't mean it ain't coming. They're smart enough to not do that. They're smart enough to not do that because they know people will respond to that negatively. But give it a few more years, 5 years, a decade, as the contradictions of capitalism increase and people continue to lean into right-wing populism, I'm here to tell you anything is fucking possible. The last thing I want to leave you with is this quote from Elon Musk, one of his tweets. This is an example of dozens of tweets Elon Musk does, or responds to favoring right-wing or fascistic talking points or rhetoric or personalities. The initial tweet is from the artist formerly known as Eric. He says, "Okay, Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. I am deeply disinterested in giving the tiniest shit now about Western Jewish populations, coming to the disturbing realization that those hordes of minorities that support flooding their country don't exactly like them too much. You want the truth? I said it to your face. There it is." Elon Musk responds with, "You have said the actual truth." The exact kind of rhetoric the Jewish elite using the unwashed, filthy masses of brown and black people to lay siege to white Christian civilization, democratic Western civilization. There it is. This is one example of many. I'm going to shut off here, guys. We've gone over an hour. I wanted to do 30 minutes, but there's too much here, and it was all important and relevant for this history. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Please drop a comment for the algorithm. Tell your friends about me, all that. If you want to support my independent media work, you can do so on Patreon for just $1 a month at patreon.com/entitledmillennials. Also, you can support my independent media work with one-time donations through PayPal at paypal.me/entitledmillennials. As always, guys, I love hanging out with you. I love talking the issues with you. And I look forward to speaking with you all again real soon. And don't forget to stay woke. Bye, guys.